the ChelleyRoy Show. I am joined here with candidate for Prince George's County Sheriff, Mr. David Grogan. All I could think about was, what you call it, gorgeous George?
Prestigious. No more gorgeous. We want to put the gorgeous Prince George's behind us.
Gorgeous Prince George's, that's what was in the background. So before we went to break, you were talking about and trying to educate us on the difference between deputy sheriff and sheriff.
So a big component of my campaign is going to be an educational piece.
Okay.
And an educational component, because most people have no idea about any of this. They just don't. And so the traditional politicians, they play off the fact that they know we don't know. And so a part of what I have done, and I'll continue to do, my grandmother was a professional educator.
Okay.
My mother was a scholar.
Okay. So educators running your family.
Exactly. So I've been educating all my life. So a part of my campaign is education. And the biggest question that comes up is, what is the difference between the sheriff and the police? There's a huge difference. First of all, the chief of police is appointed by the county executive or a mayor. In the case of D.C., Councilman Ryan or Kenneth Ryan, the chief of police is appointed by the mayor.
Okay.
And so the chief of police obviously answers to the mayor or the county executive.
Gotcha.
The elected sheriff is assigned to you all, voters. You all elect the elected sheriff. And I think there's a lot of confusion. I see some dialogue on social media. People don't know the difference. We're talking about there's only one elected sheriff. The operational people serving warrants and evictions and working the courts, those are deputy sheriffs.
Ah.
Those are deputy sheriffs. A deputy sheriff is a government job. It's like a police officer. They apply through local government and they get, those are jobs, government jobs. But the elected sheriff in Prince George's County is the chief law enforcement officer for the county.
Gotcha.
Answers to the voters.
Answers to the voters.
The chief of police answers to the mayor or the county executive.
Okay.
It's two different worlds.
That's huge. Did you guys know that?
Yeah, most people don't know, and we're going to continue this. This is one of the reasons why we have coloring books for our elementary school kids. Our coloring book is famous in the county. It's because the sheriff is your friend, and it tells elementary school students exactly what the sheriff is. So we don't have, when they grow up, they're going to have some idea. So they took civics out of schools many years ago, decades ago. And so now we graduate and we really know little to nothing about government.
Right.
And professional politicians, trust me, they bank on us not knowing.
Wow. That was great.
Yeah.
That's imperative. All right, so talk to me about your vision on accountability and transparency over Prince George's County municipal police departments.
One of the challenges, and I say challenges, they have to be careful, as I mentioned earlier.
Yes, you do.
I wear a number of different hats, and in my heart and most of my life, I am a civil and human rights advocate and activist. So I've been advised to try to keep that hat off and be a candidate. So if you hear me stutter, and
that's okay.
That's what me
You're
trying
just
to
be mindful.
I want to be mindful of it.
Yeah.
And so what I discovered in Prince George's County is that there is a lot of different levels of training with our different law enforcement. We got municipal police officers, we got county police officers, we got state, and we got sheriffs, and everybody's got all these different kinds of training. I think that we have to standardize that training to some degree. Let me just give you one example. You can pay for a class, and I want to county some kind of police. I'm still doing some work on that. You can go take a class in the county community college, get some type of certificate. I'm not sure what it is. I'll get more information. And then somehow that qualifies you to be a municipal police officer.
Really?
In Prince George's County. You could never do that in Virginia, certainly not.
So you can go take a class,
You can take a
and that qualifies you to become a police officer? You don't have to go through training, academy, any of that?
Imagine that. Class that you pay for.
I can't.
Keep in mind, a police officer, a county police officer, or a state police officer, or a federal law enforcement officer, they are hired by government. Been interviewed, the vetting is a little bit different, and you've been selected. When I was selected to be a deputy United States Marshal, I was selected by the Department of Justice. We're sponsoring this young man to go to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, paid, to become a deputy U.S. Marshal. And of course, you got to pass the training. But what I discovered in Maryland some years ago, that if you, for whatever reason, can't find sponsorship through government, you can just go take a class. And then now you can become a municipal police officer. And then you can rise to the ranks. You can become the chief of police. And you also, then you also can, now that you've got some quote-unquote police experience, now you can transfer into the past sheriff's department. When I'm the sheriff, I say the past. That would never happen under my watch. Now you transfer into a sheriff's department. You have never had any formal law enforcement training. You've never had military police training.
That's scary.
We've got a problem.
Because you're just endangering lives, playing around with people's lives. And, oh my goodness.
We have got to, you know, as an advocate, again, I won't keep my can in faith. I'm trying not to get, but, you know, I deal with that in my other world. In advocacy work and activism, where I try to get people to understand why this is a problem. Why do we have police brutality? Why do we have all of this that we see? The officers are shooting, killing, paralyzing. I think I saw today, well, I didn't see today. A police officer is found guilty of whatever the person did, called it permanent paralyzation of someone. We have got to stop this. And it's going to take bold leadership.
Yeah, leadership, education, training. Perfect segue into, talk to me about your vision on the importance of hiring police officers or sheriffs that are from Prince George's County and in the community.
It's correct. The origin or the core of community policing is hiring within the community. And it's very difficult to bring people outside your community and expect them to effectively police your community or serve and protect. Because there's a difference between serving and protecting and policing. See, our communities are policed. Other communities that serve and protect. We want to get to
Explain the difference.
The difference is that serving and protecting is more along the lines of community policing. When you're there to service, you offer the service. You're protecting when there's a need for protection. Policing is traffic stops that turn violent. Overreactions to anything that should be de-escalated.
Right.
See, serving and protecting, de-escalation, because you're going to always have issues. It doesn't matter what community. There's going to always be problems and domestics, and that's just human life. But how these things are handled is what makes the difference between serving and protecting and policing. We wouldn't go, if we're serving and protecting, we wouldn't go to a domestic violence call and expect to kill someone. We already know the level of hostility. We already know how we're going to deal with it, separate people, calm people, and make sure we handle it right when people are trained properly. But if they're not trained properly, they won't know the difference between a felony car stop, a domestic call, versus a murderer that has escaped from a prison. You have to have different mindsets to adjust to different circumstances, and we have to train.
That's true. Everything goes back to the education and the training. I know I wrote down some topics and some key points, but as you talk, my mind just sparks up other questions. It's a big thing, and it has been for a long time, especially during the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Talk to me about your vision to implement new policies and changes for no-knock warrants.
I was speaking to a young lady, an older lady, and she asked me what my thought was on no-knock warrants. The first time someone asked me about that, I really didn't know how to answer it, only because I was slightly, I don't get embarrassed, I'm exaggerating when I say embarrassed, but I was a little uncomfortable, let me just say that. And the reason why I was uncomfortable, because I had never heard of a no-knock warrant. I managed and supervised the Capital Area Fugitive Task Force for a number of years. I've locked up some of the most dangerous people on this planet, America's most wanted cases and all of that. And I had never heard of a no-knock warrant. And so what I explained to this elderly lady is that as a federal law enforcement officer, our training is different. A no-knock warrant to me sounds like a home invasion. Because federally, we're trained differently. We're trained on the knock. We're trained. We're going to practice. And the reason for the practicing and the purpose of the knocking is for liability. We're going to knock, we're gonna have identification, it's not gonna say marshal or sheriff, it's gonna say police. Police is a universal term
Yeah.
anywhere in the world. I'm knocking on the door and say sheriff, nobody has any idea, what is that? Or I knock on the door and say marshal, what in the world is that? No, it's police. You're gonna knock X amount of times, you're gonna be identified. The purpose of that is so our officers, if someone on the other side overreacts and happens to fire a weapon or anything, they can't say that I thought I was being robbed.
Yeah.
I thought this was a home invasion. So a no-knock warrant, I will support whatever it takes. We will not conduct any no-knock warrants under the David Grogan administration. Let me be very clear about that.
That is
And that's for the sake of for everybody. Because as the sheriff, sometimes people forget, especially when I'm in my advocacy role. My role is to protect my operational, my workers, and I will protect them and protect the people.
I love that. I can feel the passion, and I know there's going to be so much change. So before we get into you closing out with your campaign pitch, tell everybody where they can go vote again and what your social media handles are.
Yes. So early voting. There's a week of early voting from the 7th through the 14th. There are going to be 11 polling sites. During early voting, people can vote at any of the 11 sites, any 11 sites. The difference on election day. On election day, July the 19th, you have to vote in your assigned precinct. I don't think we call them precincts in Prince George's County, like Maryland. But you have to vote at your assigned polling station. July the 19th. We expect everyone to get out there to vote. We expect you to call, they used to say, everybody. We expect you to call everybody. Make sure this is so important. And certainly in Prince George's County, please vote Dave Grogan for sheriff. And I can be reached very easy. If any of y'all follow me on social media, if anyone want to have a discussion with me, if you have any questions, you want to talk personally, you want to talk private, you want to email me, you want to text me, I can be found at davegrogan.com. I'm always happy to give my personal cell phone number, 301-651-9178. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Nextdoor, and I'm very active in all forms of social media. Because I want people to know who their next sheriff is.
And that's important.
Access to that person.
That's important. So tell us really quickly your campaign pitch, sorry.
My pitch?
Yeah.
My pitch is fairly simple. If you're interested in reform, law enforcement, police reform, if you're interested in reimagining law enforcement, not police, reimagining law enforcement management. Management is responsible for all the actions of law enforcement officers. If you can reimagining law enforcement management, I ask you to consider Dave Grogan, to vote Dave Grogan on July the 19th.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. So thank you so much to candidate for Prince George's County Sheriff, Mr. Dave Grogan. I also want to thank candidate Attorney General for DC, Mr. Ryan Jones. You guys have been amazing tonight. You guys make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel at The ChelleyRoy Show, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I want to thank everyone who continues to support me. You guys have a great night.